Hello and welcome back to City Skylines Canada. Today we're going to continue the development along Victoria Avenue that we started last episode with the International Finance Centre. And we're going to be doing that by upzoning a lot of what we built way back in episode 2, making some PO condos, and adding some more detailed office developments in an area that we'll be calling Victoria. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe or leave a like, as it does really help out the channel. And if you want to help out even more, you can do so on my Patreon, which does also grant you access to a lot of perks and benefits like early access and save games. Anyhow, let's get right into the build. So the first thing I'm going to do is bulldoze these condos that we built in episode 2 at the start of the series. As with the downtown core being closer than I originally planned, these buildings are simply not tall enough, not nice enough, and not nearly iconic enough for what is the entrance to the city and its downtown core. Instead, I've chosen to replace them with some new condos by Reaper from Vancouver, which, while they aren't skyline defining, do work to make the density spread of the city much more sensical and make Union Station Tower not stand out as much. I've gone with 3 towers, with 2 wider ones along Victoria Avenue being the shortest and second shortest of the group, and then a taller one located right along the bridge with a more unique red line along its side. And Residences by the Bridge, which is what we'll be calling this development, is a very recent addition to the skyline. And I've used the much shorter bases to create what would be a mall at the base of the 2 towers, which are on the same block. And across Victoria Avenue from the Residences, I'll be making a small office development that won't be as iconic as the IFC or as tall as literally anything around it, but will be rather unique. I've used PO to make this short L-shaped office building, and then given it a taller atrium level using PO by lowering the bottoms of some windows. And the reason this building is so short is, first of all, so that the second shorter tower of the IFC is visible from further away, and more importantly, to allow some sunlight to reach the park across the street. And I've used the UPMC logo from the recent release of the building from Pittsburgh of the same name, and upon having looked it up, I realized that the real world meaning behind the acronym didn't really fit a city set in the Canadian Pacific Coast, so we'll be pretending that UPMC here actually means Upper Pacific Mining Corporation. Now up here, on top of the shorter wing of the UPMC complex, I'm going to be placing a little rooftop cafe with some tables and umbrellas, and then some door props by a friend of mine named Redstone to allow people onto the deck. And also I surrounded the building at ground level with the same concrete paths that will be definitive of our downtown sidewalks. Now throughout the month of January, I worked pretty far ahead in the city, which is the reason that the thumbnails and some cinematics have some stuff in them that you haven't seen me build. But rest assured that over the next few weeks I'll be finishing and publishing those videos, and they've got some really great builds like our own version of the CN Tower. And I'll also be live streaming some pretty important landscaping on Saturday, February 20th around 2 p.m. EST. Now the rest of Victoria Street will be surrounded by some high-density residential buildings as we move closer to the waterfront, as I imagine that the office development will stretch further inland rather than occupying this expensive area. And right here I put a shorter Reaper condo to maintain the sight line to the second tower of the IFC, and then along Victoria Avenue proper I put a single tower using some PO'd Smiley's condos, which, among a bunch of other perks, you can download and place within your city by supporting me on Patreon, all of my PO condos. And one block down from that, I placed another condominium development with some condos that I hadn't used up until now, because they didn't really match up with the Vancouver-esque glass wall look that I'd been going for on the Goose Peninsula. But they did fit in really well right here, in terms of their shapes and how they add a splash of color while maintaining that modern aesthetic that we're going for in Victoria. And then I used PO to make some podiums that matched up with our slightly resized towers, and then later off screen I'll cover those halls on the roofs just so that it doesn't look as weird. Now this area does take a lot of inspiration from those super condo heavy areas around downtown Toronto, and I'll just be placing some back alleys and access roads and parking lots to work towards capturing those vibes in this area. Now the Victoria district has been recently redeveloped as some older, shorter buildings have made way for this super expensive and popular neighborhood that sprung up. And I'd imagine that just like the rest of the city so far, property prices here would be damn near prohibitive. So I expanded the podium here for the shorter tower of the new condos along the curve of the road, where I imagined there would be a great deal of high-end retail boutiques and expensive restaurants and the like at the base of those mixed-use buildings. And then I placed this smaller, inoffensive condo just to fill in the space without really impacting the skyline or the much more prominent buildings that surround it. Now over here at the residences, I went with some decals that, while they are similar to our hallmark concrete paths, also offer a bit of uniqueness to set the development apart. And I used those decals and just surrounded the buildings with them, as while they may weigh quite a bit on the prop limit, decals do work wonders in terms of how good and realistic an area looks. And then I just continued placing London plane trees all the way down Victoria Avenue, as this is a really important and iconic road, and I wanted it to look consistent as you drive down it. And the smaller planters I used here are much better than those big standard curb planters that I normally use for trees, as they are less obtrusive and you won't see any Sims walking through them either. And when you do downtown sidewalks, it's very important that you don't over detail and you leave space for people to walk, because that's really what they're meant to be used for. Anyhow, once I was done with the trees, it was just a matter of sparsely detailing the areas with some more trees, some tables and benches, and then a few bollards and flags along the UPMC complex. And that is all for the Victoria district, and in the next episode of Canada we'll be moving to the other end of Victoria Avenue and building our own version of the CN Tower from Toronto. So don't forget to leave a like or subscribe if you want to catch that, and of course check out my Patreon if you want to see it early. And also don't forget to show up for our first City Skylines Canada live stream, which will be on February 20th around 2 p.m. EST. And we're just going to be doing some detailing and landscaping, and we're going to make some really big mountains just so that the city fits better with the scale of the map. Anyhow, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time in Canada.